Namaste. Welcome to Urban Chatterati. This is Abhinav Prakash. And today I'm joined by Raghav Avasthi, our Supreme Court advocate, who is here to discuss the very important judgment given by a court in Varanasi, which basically has asked the ASI to excavate the if we can call it mosque, the structure which was built over the Vishwanath Mandir, and to excavate and see if there was a temple below it. But there's a problem out there because we have a Places of Worship Act 1991, which maintains status quo at all the places of worship which are disputed, where the temples were destroyed and the mosques were built, and it maintains the status quo as it were on in 1947. So, Raghav, starting with the Places of Worship Act itself, what does it
Yes.
say basically legally?
We have to understand like two or three different things here, right? Uh, the Places of Worship Act has been enacted in 1991, and all that I will read out the provisions from the Places of Worship Act. Also, what has happened is that you have this civil court in Allahabad, which has passed this order whereby it has said that the Archaeological Survey of India should excavate and they should try and figure out if there was a mosque or a temple. What is being alleged and what is being alleged by the other side is that there is a stay order against further proceedings in the present case. I will come to the Places of Worship Act also. This stay order seems to be very mysterious. Nobody has seen it except for the Muslim side. Proceedings have been going on before the civil court. In my years of practice, I have been practicing before Delhi civil courts and I have appeared before civil courts in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand also. Practicing for 12 years now, since I was 22, I'm 34 now. I have never seen an instance where a court does not abate proceedings when there is a stay order. So, what has happened is the incontrovertible facts which are agreed upon by both sides are that the Muslim side went ahead and filed something known as an application under Order 7, Rule 11 of the Civil Procedure Code. Very simply put, what Order 7, Rule 11 of the Civil Procedure Code says is that if everything that you have alleged in your plaint is true, and even then no case is made out, then your plaint can be rejected at the threshold without going through a trial. Trial I mean, technically, what a trial refers to is what you see on TV sometimes when there are people who make depositions and opposition lawyers who cross-examine them. That is the trial. That is how you establish facts in a court of law. So, an Order 7 Rule 11 application is basically saying that that your case is barred by law. So, even if everything that you are alleging by way of facts is true, it cannot be entertained. So, what these people did was that they filed an Order 7 Rule 11 before this court, this city civil court, and the civil court did not entertain that. The civil court thought that the matter can go to trial because there is enough material and there was no legal bar. So these people have approached the Allahabad High Court. What happens in such matters is that if the court feels that you have a prima facie case, if the higher court feels that you have a prima facie case and the plaint is liable to be quashed, then liable to be rejected, then on the first stay itself, the High Court is going to grant you a stay. No such stay has been granted in this case, except for, of course, this completely illusory stay order which nobody has ever heard of, except for the Muslim side, and they are tom-tomming it in Wire and Scroll.in. Otherwise, nobody seems to have heard of the stay order. It is actually mysterious because all the orders passed by the Allahabad High Court, and for that matter, any other High Court, or for that matter, most district courts in the country also are uploaded on the internet. Of course, the time that it takes to upload orders from various courts is different. Like it depends upon which court has passed that order. Some courts upload it maybe a couple of days later, while some do it on the same day. Some, when it comes to some orders passed by some district courts, there is a lot of delay in uploading. But in most high courts, and any high court, including the Allahabad High Court, is a court of record. Orders are uploaded very quickly. So nobody seems to have seen this stay order. And now they have filed another application before the Allahabad High Court saying that it should restrain the city civil court from making this inquiry. So this is the sum and substance of the case, right? This is what is happening. Now, as far as the Places of Worship Act is concerned, of 1991 is concerned, its constitutional validity is under challenge. But fairly speaking, there is no stay that has been granted on the operation of that act. So I'm going to concede that. As of now, the Places of Worship Act of 1991 is open. However, my point is only this. The court in its wisdom, right? The court in its wisdom. When I say the court, I mean to say the city civil court in its wisdom has come to this prima facie conclusion that the Places of Worship Act of 1991 is not applicable to the suit that is being contested before it. What happens next is that these guys go to the High Court, as I mentioned just now. The High Court doesn't grant them any relief. It just says that we will hear you out. It has heard them out and it has reserved judgment. But it has very specifically desisted from passing any restraining order against the city civil court in Varanasi from going ahead with the matter. So as of now, if you look at these if you look at what these two courts have done, it seems that the Places of Worship Act of 1991 is not applicable to these proceedings, right? So let us now read what the relevant provisions of the act. It is a very short act. It is just 8 sections. It's not very long. There is, of course, there is a short title, extent and commencement, that it is extends to the whole of India except state of Jammu and Kashmir. Provisions of sections 3, 6 and 8 shall come into force at once, and the remaining provisions of this act shall be deemed to have come into force on the 11th day of July 1991. Then there are some formal sections like the definition. And this is very important. So section 4 is the most important section. So let us read that out. And I think it is really important that our listeners and viewers understand what this act is saying, right? It says, it is hereby declared that the religious character of a place of worship existing on the 15th day of August 1947 shall continue to be the same as it existed on that day. So basically, they are saying that if there is something, there is a religious character of a place of worship which exists on the 15th August 1947, it shall continue to exist. And then it says that if there is a suit or any appeal or any proceeding which says that there was a religious place and its character was converted, then if the conversion is alleged for a period that is before 15th August 1947, then that proceeding shall abate. However, if it is after 15th of August 1947, that proceeding shall not abate. But I think the next non-obstante clause, this in Latin is known as a non-obstante clause. I think that is very important. And this has not been discussed by any commentator. And this is in all probability the reason why the city civil court in Varanasi is still seized of the matter. Otherwise, these proceedings ought to have abated. But the city civil court in Allahabad, in Varanasi, is still seized of the matter. And this provision is also the reason why the Allahabad High Court, despite all the entreaties of the Muslim side, has not stayed proceedings before the trial court. Let us read it. It says, nothing contained in subsection 1 and 2 shall apply to any place of worship referred to in the subsections which is an ancient and historical monument or an archaeological site or remains covered by the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958 or any other law for the time being in force. So what I explained what the first two subclauses say, but there is a non-obstante clause. And I think I will share this page, or maybe you can also Google it, and then an authoritative screenshot can be screen shared whenever this show is being broadcast. this non-obstante clause very clearly says that this bar on suits shall not extend to religious places that are also historical in nature. If it is a place of worship that is an ancient and historical monument, or it is an archaeological site, then it will not apply. That is the point I'm trying to make.
So Congress played a trick back then, or someone sitting in the bureaucracy played it?
I don't know who played that trick. I don't know who played
Narasimha
that
Rao.
trick, quite frankly. But I mean, of course, there is Section 5 then which says that nothing in the Act shall apply to the Ram Janmabhoomi Mandir. But I think this is the most important section which is being ignored. Because otherwise, if you think about it, the suit, if I remember correctly, this can be checked again because my research tells me that the suit is also from 1991. The suit is from 1991. If this were the case, then the suit would not have continued for the next 30 years. And if this were indeed the case, then the Allahabad High Court, when this matter was brought before it, then the first thing the Allahabad High Court would have done is to just make sure that the plaint is returned. But the Allahabad High Court doesn't return the plaint.
So what you are telling us, Raghav, is that Places of Worship Act 1991 does not apply to Kashi Vishwanath.
No, I'm saying that there is a very, very good arguable case for saying that it does not apply to Kashi Vishwanath owing to the provision that I just mentioned. Of course, it is not for me to decide.
Yeah.
Right? I can only give my opinion. Ultimately, the judge's opinion, the Allahabad High Court's opinion will matter. And of course, and eventually the Supreme Court's opinion
so basically, the opinions of Scroll and The Wire does not matter.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. And prima facie, what I'm saying is that as a lay person, I mean, at the end of the day, lawyers are also lay persons who are trained in the law, right? So if you know English, you can read this act, or like if you know Hindi, you can read the Hindi version. It is very clear that if it is a historical monument, then this act does not apply to it. And everybody about the Gyan Vapi Masjid, and this is something that Audrey Trushka has also written about. So if there are some Yuva liberals who don't want to believe anybody else, they should believe Audrey Trushka. Audrey Trushka has very clearly stated that in the year 1664, Aurangzeb built the Gyan Vapi Masjid. And around 100 odd years later, there was this very venerable lady called Ahilya Bai Holkar, who built the present Kashi Vishwanath temple. So both the Kashi Vishwanath temple as well as the Gyan Vapi Mosque, they are historical monuments. If they are historical monuments, then nothing in the provisions of the Places of Worship Act shall apply to them. So this act has been put in, or rather these sections have been put in to avoid disputes over, like regular commonplace shrines. If it is a historical dispute and if we need to really figure out as to what lies beneath the debris beneath this Gyan Vapi structure, I don't think I want to dignify it by calling it a mosque, whatever this structure or monstrosity is, then then you can contest that before a court of law. We can discuss that before a court of law. There is no bar on that the Act places.
But let's say if it were not the case of Kashi Vishwanath, which can be also classified as an archaeological site, but if it was some other dispute, then is the Places of Worship Act 1991 opposite to, or does it violate the fundamental right to religion of Hindus in this country?
I think that is a very important point. And I think this is a point that we can discuss without reference to the Kashi Vishwanath dispute. So I've discussed the Kashi Vishwanath dispute in the context of this little non-obstante clause, which the Muslim side, of course, seems to have deliberately missed. Or maybe they just read whatever suits them and they don't read the rest. And that's all right. Lawyers are entitled to do that when they're representing a client. But thankfully, the judges have shown better discretion. But I think this date of 15th August 1947 seems to be wholly arbitrary. And the Constitution, to my mind, is very clear, right? It says that if you want to classify, if you want to make a classification, then first of all, it has to be on the basis of an intelligible differentia. So intelligible differentia basically means that the basis of classification has to be something that everybody should understand. It should not be obscure.
Yeah, but don't you think that the date of 1947, 15
That's
August?
what I'm coming to. That is what I'm coming to. So the government seems to have drawn a dividing line, right? They say that it is 15th August 1947. So anything that happens after 15th of August 1947 has been treated differently from what has happened before the 15th of August 1947. So there is no basis for this classification. Let us assume for a moment that you say that the object of this act is to promote religious harmony. Then would religious harmony be preserved only if the status quo of 15th August 1947 is status quo that subsisted on 15th August 1947 is preserved? You can't, I mean, why can't you have this date to be 17th, November 1953 or 12th of January 1942? So it can be any date. So the government will have to justify before a court of law that this date has some sort of a rational nexus with the object of the act. I mean, my sense is like if you go through the statement of objects and reasons of the act, let us see if there is a statement of objects and reasons. It says an act to prohibit conversion of any place of worship and to provide for the maintenance of the religious character of any place of worship as it existed on the 15th day of August 1947 and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. So if the idea is to prohibit conversion, then why should you have this 15th August of 1947? Why should you have this date as the cutoff date?
Yeah, maybe the argument there is that this is the day that modern India is founded. It become independent, sovereign country.
Exactly.
So
exactly. So that's what
we
I'm
cannot be responsible for what happened before it.
Let me come in here. So what they are saying is that the object is to prohibit conversion of any place of worship, right? So as far as the 15th of August 1947 is concerned, we have to understand, okay, so this is the date on which you did achieve political independence in the sense that I think, the constitution did not come into force then, but the British yoke was finally thrown off. What rational nexus, this is the word that the Supreme Court of India has used. So what rational nexus does that have with the character of any religious place? That we have to figure out. So the religions in India, maybe it Hinduism or Islam, they predate India's political independence. They have been people have been practicing these religions since time immemorial. So on what basis should you have this 15th day of August 1947 as the cutoff date? And secondly, there are so many, now I'll come to the other point that you made about freedom of religion. The Constitution of India protects all religious practices subject to the other provisions of Part 3, that is fundamental right. So, for example, if I were to say that my religion enjoins upon me to practice untouchability, that is not protected, right? So that is not protected. However, if I were to say that my religion enjoins upon me to worship at such and such temple, and that temple has been demolished by somebody earlier, then that right is protected. And that right cannot be taken away by means of a legislation like this. That can be taken away or that can be abrogated only if that person can show that he has a fundamental right to worship at the same place that he has demolished and converted into something else. So my right to practice my religion is subject only to the discipline of other fundamentals. It is not subject to the discipline of any act that has been framed by Parliament with the ostensible purpose of making sure that religious spaces are not converted into other things.
Very important. Very important. So
Something
you're opposing fundamental rights to religion versus a random act of the Parliament.
Yeah, so any random act of parliament cannot override my fundamental right to religion.
Hmm.
As I said, like tomorrow, if I were to say that I have this fundamental right that I want to beat up my wife because that's what my religion teaches. So that fundamental right is not protected because my wife also have a right to life and personal liberty.
Hmm. Hmm.
But my fundamental right to worship somewhere, if my religion enjoins upon me that I should be able to worship somewhere, that right is protected. That right cannot be taken away by an act of parliament because it is constitutionally guaranteed. A
Hmm.
constitutionally guaranteed right cannot be taken away just by way of an act.
Interesting, Raghav. Interesting. So, what do you see the future of this case? Where will it go now?
So, as far as this case is concerned, I am fairly confident that the Allahabad High Court will also find in favor of the City Civil Court in Varanasi.
Hmm.
And there is a very simple reason for it, which is that you have this non-obstante clause, which makes things very clear.
Hmm.
It leaves us in no manner of doubt.
So, are you saying that we might see the reconstruction of Kashi Vishwanath as well in the future?
I mean, for all we know, and after the precedent that has been set by the Ayodhya judgment, I will not be surprised if that happens. But let us see what is found underneath. I think if I were to wear my political student hat, I think there is a reason why these people are like, there is a very significant section of people who don't want the truth to come out.
Hmm.
Because we were fed this carefully curated bunch of lies about how perfect Hindu Muslim harmony existed since time immemorial and whatnot, and there was no destruction of temples, nothing. And this lie would be nailed if the truth that lies underneath this structure is unearthed.
So we'll have to wait and see how it pans out, Raghav. But thank you for explaining it so beautifully and bringing out different aspects that how places of worship simply does not apply in this case, and also fundamental right to religion versus the act of the parliament. Interesting. So thank you, Raghav, for your time and for your insights.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience, for listening to us. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also join the membership. We're having live sessions these days, so you can also join if you are the member of the channel. So see you soon. Thank you.